So let's get some answers tonight as far as, again, where we are, where we're going. Joining us now is Dr. Omar Maniya. He is a resident physician at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. He's the former president of the Emergency Medicine Residents Association and also understands the business angle because he has an MBA from Harvard Business School. Thanks for being here, doctor. Right now, I'm just wondering, because New York has been an epicenter, ERs have been overloaded. What's the ER like, let's say, 2 weeks ago versus today?
Yeah, thank you, Chance. It's great to be here with you and speak to everyone tonight. The ER 2 weeks ago versus today, at least at the few ERs that I work at in New York City, is a completely different world. 2 weeks ago, we were in peak week. It was wild. ER volumes had at least doubled, and critical patients coming in had probably 10x'd. We were struggling to find space. We were worried about running out of ventilators. And honestly, every shift just demolished you because you're just running around trying to resuscitate this patient and move on to this patient and that patient without any time to really think or reflect or focus on the bigger picture. Today, many of our ERs feel like a different world. They're almost eerily quiet. At least from the peak at my hospital, we're down maybe 4x in terms of new visits. And so that is showing great progress, that social distancing is working. That's great. But what I think is important to remember is we still have thousands of patients in hospitals who still need to recover. And so we still need to give them all of the right care that they need to get better. And, when you think about the curve going up, yeah, we might be at the top, but we're still only halfway there because we got to come down, like you mentioned, and this might go on till June or July.
Point well taken. Eerily quiet, that's a good thing at this point, but it doesn't mean it's over. Now, doctor, you have had an antibody test done yourself. I saw the picture online where they check things like plasma. How was that process? And I'm wondering, since you also have a business background, is that scalable, or do you see other better options for testing?
Yeah, the testing is so important here, and it's such an interesting thing to think about. Now, I just want to caveat this with I am not a microbiologist, I'm not a lab expert, but I'll tell you about my process. So I went to the lab at Mount Sinai, where they're doing one of these tests under emergency use authorization. I got an appointment the same day as a healthcare worker. I sat in a chair, someone drew my labs, and just one tube of blood to test for the antibody. And 4 days later, I got my result. You're the first one to hear about it, actually, and my antibodies are positive. Unlike most tests in medicine, positive in this case is a good thing. And my antibodies are high enough that they make me eligible to donate plasma. And so that's the next step. Once your antibodies are positive, you can donate plasma and hopefully try to help some of the sicker patients. Now,
that is absolutely terrific. And you would never know otherwise without testing.
Exactly. So I'm really happy about that. Now, in terms of scaling up, sure, there are a variety of issues, but the issue I think is probably most important is the accuracy rate. And so, doing blood, LabCorp, Quest, they do millions of blood draws a year. And so going to a lab and getting a vial of blood drawn, could that be scaled up? Well, it's been scaled up in a variety of other industries. So it passes the smell test. But what worries me is the accuracy rate. Now, I don't know what it is for antibodies. And I don't think we know that yet. But when we go back to the predominant form of testing, which is the nasal swab, remember that thing that goes all the way down your nose, that might only be 85% accurate. The technical term is sensitive. And so when we think about scaling that up at 100 people, at 200 people, well, you don't have that many false negatives. But when you think about it on a population scale, 100 million, 200 million people, well, there's potentially millions of people who could have an inaccurate test result and then could falsely think they are safe and not spreading the disease and then go spread that, and then we have a resurgence again. And so I think regardless of what testing methodology we use, it's really important to make sure it's accurate.
Yeah, a false negative, and then you go visit grandma and grandpa wherever they are, and then suddenly it could restart everything. It's a good point, but it also would be good to get some traction. One more thing I wanted to ask you about, Dr. Maniya, your former organization, the ER Residents Association, they tweeted about a case of apparently an ER doctor. She temporarily lost custody of her child, reportedly, because it was deemed too risky for her to be doing this. And it just showed that the effects of COVID, they extend far beyond just something like PPE into personal lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, granted, I don't know the details of the case because I'm not a child custody lawyer and I don't know the parties personally, but it was really a heartbreaking story. Dr. Teresa Green, she's an emergency doctor, and she was in a custody battle. And a judge ruled that because she was an emergency doctor, she could put her child at higher risk and took her custody away. Update on that case, the most recent word I heard is another judge has stayed that order. So while it's being investigated further, mom is not separated from her child. And so that's great. But I think the bigger issue here is, being a frontline healthcare worker today it's really hard, In addition to all these risks of getting the disease and having PPE shortages throughout the country, luckily I haven't personally faced that at my hospital, but I'm hearing from folks across the country that it is happening. But in addition to that, you're facing all this death that you never expected was going to happen. I mean, I'm an emergency doctor. Death does not bother me. It's a part of the job, but the sheer volume of death is something that I've never seen before and probably will never see again. And that gets to you. And then on top of that, you have all of these home issues. And so I think a line from a colleague of mine, Amy Ho, wrote an article called Healthcare Workers, Heroes in the Hospital, Lepers at Home. And I thought that line just so beautifully encapsulated some of the challenges that are going on. But I mean, at the end of the day, yes, we face challenges, but this is why we went into medicine. When someone yells fire, we don't run away, we run towards it. It's such an honor and a privilege to treat these patients, to be there to help our fellow men and women. And so I just want to make sure that is the main point coming across, because that's how me and so many of my colleagues feel.
It really is a great reminder that you are whole people in the healthcare industry who bring the whole of your capabilities and efforts to every single case. Dr. Omar Maniya, thank you for joining us tonight from New York City.
Thank you.
A big step.